A lot of times people say, I can't afford to do it, whether it's time or money, whatever it might be. And I would
Yeah,
say you cannot afford not to do it.
totally.
Because if you think about it, when you recharge yourself, recharge this battery, fill the bucket, however you want to call it, like Vojo just said, you are actually doing this for people who you love the most, for your
Yep.
kids, for your husbands, for your wives, for your parents. You become your best self with those people.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and love their lives. I am joined by my co-host, Polish Peter. What's up, dude?
Hey, so I don't know how I feel about this, but you're interrupting my Zen time right now. I am trying to fill my bucket and you're interrupting my bucket filling time.
What bucket is this?
Bucket for self-love.
Oh, your self-love bucket. Okay. Well, that works, man, because this is a moment for us to share that with our audience. And what we're referring to here and doing a bad job of introducing is we just
Speak
got
for
done.
yourself.
We just got done a Life Inner event and we had a Get a Life getaway. And if you haven't been to this event, you got to check it out. It's awesome. We help people figure out the full strategy and action steps to live an awesome life. And so one of the things that came up, and this does come up fairly frequently, man. Like I think this is a fairly common occurrence, is when people worry about, care about more, put others before they do themselves, and they put others first, their needs, their desires, their wants, and the person on the receiving end of this, or sorry, the person that's giving this is oftentimes left feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, empty, frustrated, angry, like all these emotions and things go along with it. And so, like, let's talk about that, man.
Yeah, I think it's a really good conversation to have because a lot of people, especially moms, people pleasers,
yeah, for sure.
People who are always looking to help others are some of the worst people when it comes to filling your own bucket. Now, I'll give you a quick example of what that actually means. Think about it. Have you ever slept less than, let's say, 4 hours at night? So you barely slept at night. How are you the next morning? How are you with the other people next
cranky
morning, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Are you able to, let's say, even if you have kids and you have to get them off to school, or you have to do breakfast, or you have to have a phone call with, a client or whoever it is, are y'all in? No. Your brain and your body is basically exhausted because you didn't fill, quote unquote, the sleep bucket. And so what we want to talk about here is why it's so important to fill those buckets and how you actually do this for different parts of your life.
Well, man, let's back up though a little bit. Like, and let's talk about why people do this. Like, because I think, on one hand, like, yes, it's great and it's selfless to help other people and to put other people, others' needs as a priority for yourself. But I think, like, at some point, you can't give what you don't have. And so, like, if you are constantly stressed out yourself and you're angry and you're anxious and all these other things are weighing on you, you're not going to be your best self. And then therefore you can't help others. So why do people get sucked into this, man? Like, why do you think so many people, especially moms, you said it earlier, moms, I think are the prototypical example. And this is not to stereotype. And I know there's dads out there too, and people that aren't even parents at all, this applies to, maybe people pleasers, for instance. But like, why do people how to fall into this trap? And is it a trap? Isn't it a good thing? Like, should we put everybody else first before ourselves? Like, is that, would I be selfish if I didn't do that?
Well, you specifically, yes, but other people know.
Everybody else.
What I mean by this, well, here's the thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. And what ends up happening for a lot of different people is the reasons why they, put other people first in front of them. It depends on the person. Like one person, it could be, well, if I'm being by myself. And actually, we had one person in the room talk about that, is when I'm being by myself, I don't know how to be by myself. Like, I don't know how to quote unquote, deal with myself, how to be with myself. So when I'm with other people, I'm always helping other people. I'm quote unquote in a way kind of distracted so I can go and be with other people. There are some people who are doing all this stuff for other people, then when they're by themselves, they actually don't know what to do. It's like we ask somebody like, what are your hobbies? And they're like, I don't know. right?
Yeah.
Some people, the reason why they are constantly doing for others is because they get a lot of their needs met out of that. They get a lot of connection and they feel really important on what other people are giving them. And now
Feel
they're feeling
needed,
like,
feel wanted.
yeah, and all that kind of stuff, right? And moms do this quite often. Like that one particular person in the room that was a mom, and well, actually there were several of them, a bunch of them who were moms in there. What ends up happening is they keep pouring into other people, like their kids, like the husbands and things like that. And at some point they start running on fumes.
Yeah.
And what ends up when you're running on fumes?
Dude,
You
it's
are
not,
not
yeah.
100%. You're not
Yeah.
present. You're not intentional.
Right.
You're not loving. You're short.
And I think, I think this comes from a good place many times.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. It comes with a very positive intent. But a couple things, like one problem with this is that eventually, and some people have longer fuses than others, you are going to burn out and you are going to be, you're going to crash and you're not going to like the person you become. And it's going to affect those other relationships that you worked so hard on. And you're going to be volatile. You're going to be maybe resentful, over all these things. And they kind of like, have you ever had that happen, man, where like I'm sure you've never had this happen, but other people have had this happen where like, you just blow up at something when it's a tiny little thing, but it's really not that tiny little thing. It's all the like 40 things prior to that all cumulatively kind of added up to this one moment. And that's what happens when you don't have self-love and you don't have self-care and self-nurture, right? When you give, I'd say this is one of the most common things, is like when you give and give and give and give and give and don't receive and don't fill your own cup, like it makes you more short with people. It makes you into a person that you don't want to be.
Well, because your bucket is basically empty.
Yeah.
And you can see it in your own life as you're going about life. Think about how many times there is this idea of going full out for long periods of time, like it's floating around the internet. Some entrepreneurs or gurus talk about that of, going full out for long periods of times. What ends up happening is you burn out very quickly. Now you can be very intentional, like in Life Owners, we talk about, like for me, between 10 and 2:30, I work like my hair is on fire. But I have other specific times in my day where, like in the morning, I have my morning time for my own bucket time, right? When I go to the events, think about it. What me and you do at the events? We pour into other people, and I love doing it. It's like fills my bucket like you will not believe. But what ends up happening at the end of those 3 days, which we finished on Sunday, on Saturday, on Sunday, I come home and I don't know my own name. And if I don't fill my own bucket during that time, how am I going to be for the next, few days, next week and things like that? And by the way, what will also happen, I think, is pretty soon, if I don't start filling my own bucket, that activity that I love doing, like the 3-day events, pretty soon becomes this chore, becomes this thing like, I don't want to do this again.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
It almost doesn't matter. Like, and actually you kind of bring up a good point. It must have been accidentally, I'm sure. It's your business and your personal life, right? Like it's both. Like, and so you've got to figure out a way. I think 2 things to do. One is to figure out like ways to fill your own bucket. Now, along with that has to be the permission to give yourself that ability. Like, because I think a lot of people think it's selfish. They think it's self-centered, or I couldn't do that, or I can't go to the spa, and whatever it is for you. Maybe you're like Peter, you like manicures and pedicures, like and all those kinds of things. That's cool, but you have to give yourself permission to do it. Not only the time, but the money, right? I remember we've heard this from people at the Get a Life, like, oh, I can't do that. I can't spend that kind of money on myself, right? I'm like, what?
Yeah, and here's the thing: the word selfish, I think, over the years, has gotten a bad rap. Meaning like it's a really bad thing. One of the things that's I'm learning the English language. I'm still learning. Quiet, don't say anything, because I know you're already looking to jump in on that. Is the meaning that English words have. Every single word in English language has some kind of a meaning. And the word selfish, think about self. It's about me. And how it's become this bad thing that if you start focusing on you or start pouring into yourself for some time, it's a bad thing. Now, what I would encourage people is that when you look at that perspective, imagine that you have a bunch of different buckets. You have a giving bucket, you have a self-love bucket, you have, let's say, anger bucket, you have a happy bucket, you have all those different emotional buckets. So when you do certain things for long periods of time and you constantly keep pouring out, what happens to your buckets like that you need to fill for yourself? They start getting empty because you're pouring it out of the bucket for other people. So
Yeah.
in order for you to be able to pour more into other people, you got to fill your own bucket ever so often.
Well, dude, so let's talk about this a little bit. So the word selfish, and there's probably there are people who are selfish, right? Who really
Mm-hmm.
are all about them, no matter what. It's all about them. And so I think we got to be careful to discern this. Like, how, and for if you're listening right now, there is a line somewhere, and maybe it's a little bit blurry for you, but certainly there are things that are in your own best self-interest that will lead to self-preservation, that will allow you to give the most of yourself to the things and people you love. And there are other things that are damaging to that. And so at some point, you got to find that boundary for you. And I say that with caution though, because like some people have a hard time doing anything for themselves because they think it's selfish. And I think that's not right. I don't think that's the right context of what we're talking about here. In terms of like true selfishness is when everything's about you and
Mm-hmm.
you are the center of your universe at the exclusion and of the detriment to other people. Like you're literally like, hurting other people. The selfish we're talking about here is like focusing on you so that you can give to the things and people you want without feeling compromised, without feeling like you're totally burnt out and like you're going to crash and burn because you have nothing left to give. So that's one distinction I want to make. But the other thing here is that you have to kind of, and you probably have to find this for yourself, but somewhere along the line, you may have been told that focusing on you is wrong or it is selfish. And I think that's a real disservice. I think it's, for instance, am I selfish because I like to go to the gym and I work out, and which, and one person might look at me and say like, well, hey, that's an hour that I could be with my family or working. So am I robbing my family by not spending time with them, or am I robbing my customers and my clients and the prospects who don't know what I do because I'm working out versus prospecting or calling people or writing sales copy or whatever, right? Like, and so you can easily start to justify an excuse, a reason to not work on you if you really think hard enough about it. But I want to encourage you, like, to not do that. Don't give yourself the reason to neglect yourself. Like, because I think self-neglect is really what we're talking about here. It's not like selfishness necessarily, it's self-neglect. And maybe that's a better term. And so that's one important distinction. But the other thing, Peter, I think is important to determine is like, let's say that people have, okay, and here, look at this. And I'm not saying you have to drop all of your obligations and responsibilities. We'll talk about that in a second, but like, give yourself some degree of bucket filling activities and see how you feel. Like, see how you feel about it. Like, does this show up for you? And do you show up better for other people than you were before? Like, do you feel more relaxed? Are you more patient? Are you kinder? Are you more encouraging? And that'll be a nice little test for you if you pay attention to that, to prove to yourself like, hey, this really is helpful.
Right. So you brought up a couple of points. I want to kind of unravel some of those things. One, I think people, how do you know that you need some of that bucket filling? And I think that's an important distinction because I think your life, your body, your mind, your environment probably tells you that you need to fill your own bucket because maybe you're more stressed out, maybe you're tired, maybe you are shorter with people, and especially the people you love the most. Maybe you don't want to do the things that you used to enjoy. and maybe you want to check out, maybe you do check out, maybe you are feeling sad or depressed or whatever. Those are the kind of an indicators, I think, that there is something not working or not working as well as you would like it when it comes to your vision. When that happens, when you start seeing that and you start assessing your life that way, then you say, okay, I need to fill this bucket. So
step back
now,
and
yeah,
reassess.
step back and reassess and look at your life. Because think about it this way: if your life is not working like you would like it to, something is not right. So if that's the case, what's the thing that I need to do? So when we talk about this being self, and I would say instead of saying selfish, what word pepped up for me, what word pepped up for me.
Peter, this is an English podcast.
Yes, so that's transcripts are on the back table. Anyway, what popped up for me is this word self-love. Because, the people that we're talking about here are people who are very loving people who are out there for others, people who are doing stuff for other people.
Yeah.
So they're loving on others in some shape or form. So what if we had to go on self-love? So what does that look like? Well, first, one of the things that comes up a lot for those people, but when I don't have time for this. Think about it. We've had this a lot, right? Where am I going to do this? I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
So how do we answer that question?
Well, I think let's dive into that a little bit. So let's say you have a lot of obligations and responsibilities, and people are dragging everywhere you look. People want something for you. Two things on that, and this is something I alluded to earlier. Like, number one, I think you have to look at what you're doing for others and really ask yourself, like, am I helping them or am I hurting them? Now, that might seem crazy, and let's just talk about that and unpack it for a second. Let's say that somebody always comes to you for something and it's something that they could do for themselves. Well, I think if you truly love that person, if you want to help them, you may consider helping them understand what it takes to do it themselves and giving them the support and encouragement to do it themselves. And so, for instance, I'll just give you an example. And I'm going to use a child as an example here, but this applies to many adults who act like children as well. Like, so my 4-year-old, I will go in her closet and I'm seeing she's in a phase now where she just enjoys, like, she'll change like 2 or 3 times a day, and it's created a big mess. And that does not work. Right. And so what I've taught her to do now, I could go in there and hang up all her clothes and fold all her clothes, but she is old enough to understand how to do it herself. And so I taught her how to fold her jeans, how to hang up her shirts, how to do everything like this. And she has to do it. And so she does do it. And I've showed her how to, I've demonstrated, I help her, I supervise her, and now it's expected. And now she's learned how to do that. And so, but if I didn't, now don't get me wrong. At the beginning, she wasn't happy about it. Oh, I can't do it. But she did it. And I encouraged her and I reinforced it positively, and now she's doing it. And so that easily could have turned into one more little, admittedly, thing that would be on my plate or my wife's plate, but now it's not. And so those little things that we do for everybody stack up. And so this is where I think we have to recognize, like, what are the things that we're putting on our own plate that quite frankly shouldn't be there? Like, what are the things that we're kind of, I want to almost say, enabling others to impose on us when in fact they need to do it themselves, and we're not really helping them. I don't know if I've talked on this podcast before about this. Like, for instance, my oldest daughter, like, we've had these discussions for a long time, where I think kids are a great example, because, like, as parents, we our job is to prepare them to be a functional human being who can contribute to society, and love them along the way.
She said functional.
Right. Well, they have to do stuff. Like, I remember when my oldest daughter was a kid, and she had forgotten her lunch from school once, and she was old enough to remember. And so I brought it to her, and then like a week later, she forgot again. And I brought it to her again. I said, "Hey, hon, listen, this is going to be the last time I bring you your lunch. If you need," and she was older now. She wasn't like a young kid. She was old enough to remember. I think this was high school. And I said, if you don't remember your lunch, you're gonna have to figure something out. And or I said, you're gonna have to work for me for the amount of time it takes me to come out here and bring you your lunch. And now I'm sure she thought I was a bad dad and I was a meanie. And then she forgot her lunch again. And there was like a week or two later, and I said, I'm not coming unless you want to work for me. And she didn't want to work for me for that particular instance. And so she had to bum some food off her friends. And she came home, she made a little post-it note and put it on the fridge to not forget her lunch. And guess what she didn't do after that? Right? She did not forget her lunch. And I know it's a silly example, but each of these little things that we're doing for other people wears us down. And so, like, what are you doing right now that you could get off your plate, that you could help somebody else do for themselves, which, by the way, is not selfish of you to do. Like, you're actually helping them. You're teaching somebody responsibility. You're showing them a new skill. You're allowing them to take care of themselves. And so how many of those little things does it take until somebody gets overwhelmed? And that's why I think this is a really important thing.
Right. So my big takeaway from what you just shared is I don't know if I would want to deal with you.
Yeah, you're lucky I'm not your dad, Peter.
Work for you, especially work for you.
Oh,
Man,
yeah. Thank
God I'm not working for you.
She has worked for me for other things too. But again, I'm doing that. That's a whole nother thing, like where I'm teaching her some skills. And I think, but I think this is just something that like a lot of times, like we just do stuff for other people that they don't need done. And
totally.
And it's for our own benefit, number one, sometimes, or whatever. But it's like, we talk about this like at the Business Builder Workshop, man, where like by parallel, when you're doing everything in your business, it is not going to be a successful business. Well, it's the same thing in life, in your personal life. You can't do everything.
Right. And it's very apparent for people in the business because, well, for some of them, but you can't grow the business when you're doing everything yourself. And same thing with life. You can't grow your life if you're doing everything yourself or for others and things like that. So listen, I'm not going to dive too much into what you just said because I think you explained it pretty well on how to help others so you can free up some of your time. Now,
you got something else, man? I just want to say one more thing here. And I don't know if you were going to go here, but the other thing I want to add really quickly is some of you right now are saying, well, I have to do this. I have to do that. And man, I'm thinking about the example in the room that we gave, like the woman, the mom, we gave her this example of like that. There was a parent, there's a mom who thought she had to bring her kids to school every day and had to pick them up every day. Come to find out there were other kids in the neighborhood in the subdivision and the parents carpooled. And so what turned out to be 10 trips a week, 5 times there, 5 times back. And this was a reason, like she was stressed out and it screwed up her schedule and she couldn't go to the gym and she couldn't do all these other things. Now became a once a week thing. And so you got to also be creative with this and enlist the help of other people. Right. So as you do this now, that's another way for you to get rid of some of these obligations and responsibility that are weighing heavily on you.
Right. And here's one quick point that I want to mention, because I think people are going to start seeing when they start doing this. In this particular example, one of the big reasons like this mom is dropping off kids and picking up kids and all that kind of stuff, because she gets a lot of love and connection out of doing that, right? Or she feels important, or she feels like she's needed and things like that. Now, what ends up happening when you constantly keep doing this and your whole life does for others like that, especially the closest people in your family, what happens? Your connections outside of the family unit are not really there because you don't have time for that. So then what ends up happening is you're not filling that bucket to having connection outside of them. Like how many moms or single dads or whoever it might be, anybody, you see where they don't have any quote unquote much life outside of that family unit. Now, when you start using the example like you just shared about carpooling all this stuff, now you start meeting other people in the neighborhood. You start connecting with the other moms or other dads or whoever it might be. And now you start creating yourself a bigger community and you start interacting with others that starts to give you bigger connections. And you start making friends and things like that. And now when it comes to going and doing something for yourself, like going hang out with a bunch of friends, now you know that you have some friends to hang out with. And you're not sitting at home and like, well, yeah, you're telling me to go hang out with friends by myself, but I don't have any friends, right? So it's almost like sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot by doing everything for others and not filling our own buckets. Now, let's say that we figured that part out, and now we have 1 or 2 hours or even 30 minutes a day that we freed up. For those who are doing it, 24/7 for others, it's very difficult to do that. And let's say they freed up, let's say an hour or half an hour. A lot of those people, the next question is, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to
Oh
fill my
yeah.
own bucket. So
Yeah.
how we talk about that?
So that's a huge one, man, because some people don't, it's been so long since they've done anything fun or so long since they've done anything rewarding. They don't know what to do. So I think one approach is to kind of think back as to what you used to enjoy when you were younger before you had all the obligations and responsibilities. That'd be one, right? Another idea, you have something?
And something, I mean, sometimes it has you go all the way back to when you were a kid.
It could be. It could be.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you haven't done it for so long. Like, what did you love doing when you were a kid?
Yeah.
I'm not
And
saying like, eating dirt kind of a thing, right?
right, right.
Someone with the
Well,
boys.
and I'm not saying that is where you're going to go, but it's a good exercise to see because, like, yeah, I mean, as you age, maybe your interests change and things like that, but it's a good place to start if you can't think of anything. Another way to do it would be to think of, like, when you hear somebody, like, let's say you have some friends or you've saw on social media or TV, and you see somebody do something and you're like, oh, that would be really cool. I wish I could do that. Think of those things. Like, maybe it's a trip, maybe it's hanging out on the beach for a day, maybe it's taking a hike through the woods, maybe it's cuddling, dude, taking a nap, bro. Like, taking a nap. It could
Are we
be,
doing this again, naps?
yeah, we're gonna
Really?
talk about naps
Talking
again.
about naps again?
We're gonna it could be just cuddling up with a book next to your fireplace.
Mhm.
It could be going to get a massage. It could be, getting your nails done. It could be just going to get out and seeing a movie. Like, whatever it is, like, there's so many possibilities, but the focal point here is, like, it makes you feel good and you get recharged from it and you feel like just reinvigorated, and you approach life with a little more patience and you're in happiness.
Yeah, I got another example, and you're not allowed to make fun of this because I know you would go and do this.
Polka. I knew it, man. Yeah.
3 to 1, 1 to 3. Who the heck is bothering me? No, you're making fun of polka, but actually at this event, we did do polka. It was fun. It was awesome, actually. It was very cool to, we had one of our guys who was running Bill, who's running the audio, play a song, and it was very, very cool. But here's the thing. One of the things that I do is what I call stare at the wall time. And I literally have, some days I have where I literally just don't do anything. I just sit there and, quote unquote, let my mind just go blank and just stare at the wall.
Do you actually, like, stare at a wall? Like, actually?
Well, there's 4 walls in the house, so how can you not stare at the wall?
I mean, do you sit
wall.
in a chair and just, like, it's like time out, like, you, like, look at the wall in the corner?
No, I sit literally in the corner. I face the corner.
Okay, that's what. Yeah. Well,
no,
dude,
that's not what I do. Don't start giving people ideas, because now we're gonna have a big, maybe a TikTok challenge.
People are gonna be like, "Hey,
corner.
how's the wall sitting going?"
Yeah. No, but listen, it's letting, think about it. When you have a busy life, when you have a life that you were very impactful or intentional, however you want to look at it, you need to stop and listen, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right. And you need to give yourself this kind of not thinking. And it takes some practice, because some people call it meditation. Some people call it, spending time with the Lord. Yeah. I do that every single morning, Dude, and then I also do, like, just staring at the wall blankly.
I think quiet time is a really good one to recharge your battery. Like, just either, I like to do it in the morning. Like, if I can do, before anybody wakes up, just sit there on the couch, dog on my lap, just sitting there and relaxing and just kind of thinking and praying. Maybe I'll journal. I'll write down a couple things as they come to my mind. But that's a great one, man. I think exercise is another one, man. Like, go out for a walk, go out for a hike, get in the gym, like, move your body, go, go for a bike ride. Like, that stuff, like, really has a lot of stress reducing properties as well.
Well, think about it. Me, and as far as, like today, after this podcast, we finished recording the podcast. I have a bunch of coaching calls. They end at 3:30.
Oh yeah, you're at the gym.
And I go to the gym. And here's what happens. I put my earpods in, listen to my music, and I work out. And it's my time.
Oh,
it's
dude,
like, just go in, no interruptions, don't answer any calls. Nobody bugs me. I go into my own kind of a
you got water. Those water aerobics classes are insane, man. It's totally working for you. Like, that's awesome. And
hey, you know what? Whatever works. Synchronized swimming, whatever it might be. I'm telling you, I'm going to kick your butt, dude.
Keep it up. And so, man, I think we kind of like, I don't know. That's kind of like everything that I was thinking of saying about this topic, but it's so important. It really is. And but it's so basic at the same time. But I think it's really, really important because we see this over and over again, both in business and in life, where people are just trying to do it all. And you just can't. All right. You have a limited capacity. All of us have limited resources, attention, time, patience, physical ability, energy, all these things. And so you got to use it for the best return, the best return on whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. You know, joy. I like to talk about a lot, the return on joy, right? And so as you're doing that, you'll be in a better place. You'll feel better. You'll be a better person around others. You'll run a better business. You'll be a better mom, dad, brother, sister, like whatever, you know, child. And I think that's an often neglected piece of the whole puzzle.
So I saw one last thing about this, because a lot of the not excuse, but a lot of times people say, I can't afford to do it, whether it's time or money, whatever it might be. And I would say you cannot afford not to do it.
Totally.
Because if you think about it, when you recharge this battery, fill the bucket, however you want to call it, like Wojo just said, you are actually doing this for people who you love the most, for your kids, for your husbands, for your wives, for your parents, for your business partners, for your employees, whoever that the people are in your life, the relationships that are close in your life. When you do that, when you fill your own bucket, you become your best self with those people. You get on that journey to become your best self. And guess what? You give the best of you towards the other people. And when you give the best of you, you become the authentic you. And become the authentic you, they really get to know who you are. And now, guess what? They want to be more with you, around you. They want to spend time with you. And you start rocking out in life because you actually do yourself.
Yep. Love it, man. Well, awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Really important topic. I hope you take it to heart and do something with it and prioritize yourself here. Give yourself some self-love, some self-nourishment, and see the results. Leave us a review, leave us a rating, give us a thumbs up, tell your friends about it. And also, like, get into Life Inner private Facebook group if you haven't already. It's great conversations going on over there. People helping each other live their visions in every step of the way. We'll see you next time, everyone.